How's it going, guys? All right, so today we are going to be greasing Sportsman 850. This will work on the majority of Sportsmans. The 1000s are the same, the 850s are the same, and the 570s are roughly going to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I'm greasing, why I'm greasing it, and how I'm greasing it. Some of the tips, some of the tricks, and how to do it. So the first thing, as you can see, is we have a wheel bearing greaser. This is the Super ATV wheel bearing greaser. This allows you to keep your axle on the machine while you grease the wheel bearing. The reason why these wheel bearings are so finicky on the Polarises is because they're not really that well sealed. So you can see you've got the front here. You'll obviously be able to see it once I get done more. And in the rear, where the axle comes in, as you can see there, the sealing on it is not good. So there isn't an actual axle seal between the axle and the hub. So it's just two pieces of metal that slide together, and there isn't a seal. So the bearings are essentially, they're a two-piece bearing. So I should have done this before we started the video, but I actually have a new bearing that I can show you what it looks like and why they leak. Okay, so you see we have the bearing here. Okay, this is a Polaris wheel bearing. So the bearing itself is sealed here and here. However, it is not actually sealed on the inside. So if I pull this apart, you can see there's nothing that seals it from ingress of dirt and grime and mud. So the inside of the bearing is not sealed. Okay, so you can see this is just a simple metal piece, and the metal race sits in there. And then on the inside of the bearing, as you can see that line there, that's actually where the grease, the Super ATV bearing greaser, will push grease. But the problem with that is that also means that water and mud and dirt and everything can get in there. So it really doesn't matter if you grease it once. As soon as you ride it again, all that water and stuff is going to get into that hole that I'm pointing out with my finger, or that line. Once it all gets in there, if it sits with water in it, it's just going to start rusting. So I actually grease my wheel bearings after every ride. I mean, obviously, if I just take it down some trails, dusty trails, whatever, but if I go into any water or any kind of dirt or mud, wet dirt or mud, obviously mud will be wet, this gets greased. So the way you do that, the first step is going to be to take your wheel off. Okay? The wheel removal is a 17 millimeter. I use the impact gun because it's the easiest thing. The next tools you're going to need, a 15 mil, a socket, and an extension, or an impact driver. That works as well. After that, you're going to remove your cotter pin. You're going to need a pair of wire snips and pliers. So the way you remove the cotter pin is using the pliers. You're going to flatten it out here, and then using your snips, you're just going to pry and pry until it comes right off. Nice and easy. Then you have a parts bin, drop it in the parts bin. All right, so then you're going to remove your caliper. I'm going to spin it here. Take your impact driver or whatever you got, and you're going to take off your caliper. So it's a 15 mil. 15 mils right there. I'm going to zip it off. And then the lower one. The lower one is right there, and we're going to zip it off. All right, then you take your caliper bolts, throw them in your parts bin. Caliper is going to slide right off, nice and easy. All right, and you can set that off to the side wherever you want to set it. All right, now we're going to turn this again. Now we're going to take our 27 mil right here. It's going to go onto the axle nut. Take your big old honking impact driver, shove her on there, buzz it off. Nice and easy. Into the bin. Next step, hub needs to come off. How are we going to take the hub off? We're just going to pull it. That's it. Hub comes right off. There's a couple of washers in there. There's two. Make sure you don't lose those position. Now, we can see in here, you can see in this bearing what I'm talking about. See how there's no sealing at all? So if I stick my finger in there and run it around, you can see all the dirt and mud and crap. You can see all the crud that's all along there. So then we're going to clean it. All right, I'm not going to show that step because it's annoying. Once you clean it, you're going to take your greaser and you're going to shove it in there. And you're going to just work it in back and forth until it goes into place. You'll know it's in place because it'll seat right there and you can't push it anymore. Once that's in place, then you just grab your grease gun of your choice with grease of your choice. I use Lucas Oil high performance grease. It's like $3 more than the cheapest one, so why would you not use it? Then you put your grease gun on the fitting and pump it full of grease until you see a little bit of water come out of that seal. You can look on the back side. Once a little bit of water comes out of that seal, you give it one more pump, you're good to go. That's it. And that will keep it nice and greased and good to go. Then you just slide your tool back off. Take your hub. I clean the hub. Again, look at all that gunk in there. So all that will be cleaned before I throw it back on. I clean the hub. And then I take it. And it gets lined back up with the splines. Nice and easy. And then you just work it till it gets pushed back on. 2 washers. Back on. Nut. Wherever I put it. Nut. Back on. And then that's just going to get tightened down. So you just thread your nut back in there. Alright. Once the nut's thread back on, take your caliper. Put that back on. You're going to hold your pads apart a little bit so that they fit back in there. Make sure it's all lined up still. Then you're going to tighten your caliper bolts back on. Once those are tight, come over here, put your brake on, your emergency brake, and that's going to get tightened down to 75 foot-pounds. All right? And that's it. Make sure your caliper's tight. Make sure that's tight. Cotter pin goes back in, and wheel goes back on. That's it. I can do this in about 5 minutes. As you see, this has been a 7-minute video. And that's it. And then obviously, like I said, I'm not going to, this was just a demonstration here. I'm going to clean everything before I put it back together. And yeah, and then like I said, I would do that after every big ride. And that will save the majority of the issues you're going to have with your wheel bearings. Next thing you're going to be greasing. You have one fitting there, one fitting here, one on the upper A-arm, one on this upper A-arm. So the problem with these fittings is that they are the wrong direction. So they face inward on the machine. So in order to do the driver's side, you actually have to come from the passenger side. In order to do the passenger side, you actually have to come from the driver's side. So remember that when you're doing it. Then we're going to come from to the rear. And obviously this will be done when the wheel's off, but they're going to have a fitting here, and then one on the other side of the A-arm, one up top for the upper control arm, and then one down there, and then one up top. The up top one is a pain. It's actually underneath the A-arm right up there. So that's what you got in the rear. And then in the center of the machine, you have your axle spline or your drive shaft spline. So you see the drive shaft here. You're actually going to look up underneath the machine. We can see it in there. You can see it. All right, so you see the axle. Let's see if I can point to it with my finger. My finger right there, that axle. If you look underneath the machine, you'll actually see a grease fitting on it. You're going to want to fill that 2 or 3 pumps of grease. That allows the drive shaft to slide on the spline so that you don't get drive shaft bind. If you don't do that, at some point your pinions will explode. So that's how to grease a wheel bearing on a Sportsman 850. If you guys want to see any other how-to videos, let me know. This is obviously the machine after the cleaning, after the Hatfield McCoy trip. Now what I use after I pressure wash the whole machine, make sure everything inside of it is good, there's no mud and sticking anywhere, and I actually spray it down with Chemical Guys Silk and Shine dressing. It's $10. The can lasts me basically the whole season. And I spray it down with that. It's out there because I need to get a new one. I spray it down with that. And that's pretty much it. And then she looks brand new. It really does a good job of covering in all the scratches and doing all that stuff. So again, if you guys want to see any other videos, any other how-tos, let me know. I'll put one out. Whatever you want to see, whatever you want to hear about. And we'll talk to you guys soon. I'm also going to be doing a top speed video on this machine soon. This is a completely bone stock one, obviously with just the aftermarket tires. So let me know, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Like, comment, and subscribe.